Welcome back, everyone, all of my truth seekers, all of the YouTube world. Thank you for joining us today. And welcome to Speak Your Truth with Charlie. So, I wanted to have a discussion on this channel today about some taboo health issues. Us women have been dealing with our bodies, things like heavy period cycles, fibroids, tumors, endometriosis, adenomyosis, cancer cells, polyps, hysterectomy, prolapse of the genital organs, and so much more that, so many of us women really don't talk about, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have this discussion with my friend here, Miss Inger Robertson, because we had many conversations privately, as you know. And I told Inger we needed to have some of these conversations publicly in order to help women to be able to feel comfortable to have these necessary conversations personally on their own. With that being said, welcome, Inger. So, Inger, question. When you were in the process of going through some of your medical difficulties, right? I remember you didn't share that with me initially until I revealed that I was dealing with, some of my own medical issues. I wanted to know, why was that? Was that because you felt like you were the only woman dealing with something like that? Or because you were embarrassed to share? Or was it because you felt comfortable? I know this is like a threefold question. You felt comfortable revealing your issues to me when you knew I was going through similar circumstances. So, which one was that?
I think I would go back to when my mom was in her 40s. She ended up having heavy periods and all that. And it was just always talked about like that's just the normal progress of things. So
I'm sorry.
I was thinking that this was just a normal thing. And then when you shared, it's not something easy to just, talk with other people about. So because you were willing to share that level, I felt, okay, we've been brought together as being able to follow this journey together.
I really believe that. I believe that you find different people that are going with similar circumstances that you can relate with. I think God puts us all together for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so let's see here. I took some notes, everybody, so just bear with me. Okay, so Inger, do you mind taking us on your journey into what you were dealing with physically, emotionally, and also personally?
I had hit a point where the menopause stuff was hitting, and we're just laying it out there. The zing of life and the excitement of seeing your husband and stuff had changed and kind of needed dulled or whatever. I was
Not to interrupt you though, but that's another thing. When you're going through menopause, that's another thing that
nobody tells you about. Yeah.
I can tell you to this day what that's about, because my mom never discussed that with me. Aunties never discussed that with me. But you saw mood changes and things like that.
Yeah.
Distant. I saw it. I read up on it even as a kid, with their different movements, but no one ever admitted it. But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's okay.
I didn't want to lose that. I am someone who was deeply affected by sexual abuse from 5. It was a real battle to get to where I had a comfort level with my sexuality. And I wasn't ready to give that up. I mean, I was just feeling like I was coming to my own, and then my body did this change that nobody warned me was going to happen. And so, vainly, I don't know how else to put it, I looked into the hormone treatments. Well, when I first started going to get the hormone treatments, I had been with a group that was talking about health and that, and they had the doctor come in and talked to all of us, and he essentially said there was no concerns or anything with it. When I went in to have it done, your insurance doesn't cover it. This is something that you have to pay out of pocket. But I still went forward, and I started getting like clearer thoughts, could maintain stuff better, you know, all those things that you don't realize as it's declining, but all of a sudden you have this influx of hormones. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool.
So at that point, you felt like the medication was actually working?
Yeah, the hormone treatment seemed well. But the doctor kind of cursory went over and said, you know, you should probably take this and take this vitamin and blah. And it kind of felt like a used car lot.
Wow.
The way it was quickly done, but never explained what it was for, what it would do. And I even told him at one of my appointments, it feels like a used car lot. Can you tell me what's going on? And so, one of the medications that he had said was a different hormone that I had to get through, not through him in the pellet system, but through a pill. Well, I couldn't find it. And I didn't realize how important it was because it wasn't discussed to a degree. So it's supposed to help protect your uterus. I found out later.
Yeah. Because you know what? It's almost like they expect you to be the doctor too.
I think he does it at such a level that it's just normal routine. And of course, you know, he just says this all the time. People just, you know. So, and I'm one who, I don't want to take a lot of meds if I don't have to. I'd rather do things more naturally or whatever. So, I was already doing this big deal with the pellet, right? So it went really well, and the thing lasted about 6 months. To 9 months, depending on how your system goes through it. First round was good. Went to my second round, and
Now, with the second round, tell us, was it like an increase in milligrams? Because they tend to do that too. Like
he wasn't doing that.
Okay.
He said it seemed like it was a pretty good round for you, so we're going to keep it at this dosage.
Okay.
And this is one where they actually slice and put it in inside of you.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a slow release thing. And then I started having fatigue. And I was having, my memory was still good, the zing was back, and feeling myself, you know, like, ooh, kind of interested in all this stuff again. The woman, yeah, being a sexual being again, very much alive with that, and body response, we'll just say it was body response, you know, and but then I started bleeding, and I went over a 6-month period with only 8 days without bleeding.
Wow.
And I was talked to him and stuff like that, and then he was saying maybe we need to look at hysterectomy. And I said, okay.
And they tend to come to that resolve really quick. Really
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
It's like, we don't want to deal with this, so like,
Right.
are you planning on having any more kids anyway?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's over anyway, so what the hell? Just take the pieces, right? And it's like, wait a minute.
but they don't understand too psychologically what that does to you as a woman.
Right.
I mean, I had no intentions at all of having kids when all this happened to me, right? But at the same time, that's what makes me feel like a woman.
Right. Because you know you are able to help create life, and it's unique to what we are.
You know, and they don't tend to always mention that to men, is what I notice. You know, it's like, oh, that's going to take your manhood. Well, isn't it going to take my womanhood? Do you ever consider that?
Yeah.
That's not even considered at all. And that's the thing that needs to be changed. And a lot of us women, we don't really have a lot of women doctors. They're scarce and far in between. It's always these male doctors.
Yeah.
that you have to talk to and deal with. And a lot of them, I'm sorry to say it, a lot of them have kids, but they really don't know a woman's body at all.
Right, ovulate and get back to me, right?
All day long.
Yeah, well, I think just talking about a woman doctor. So our insurance changed at the same time. So to have this hysterectomy, we agreed my cervix had closed, so he couldn't do a scrape to see if I was okay in the uterus. We did the partial, and I didn't hear anything from them. They just said, come in 3 months, and we'll see how everything's going, how it's looking after they took the sutures out. So,
can I interject for a second?
Sure.
Now, when you had your hysterectomy, you had your hysterectomy first, and then they did the scraping. For me, they did the other way around.
Right.
They scraped, and I'm telling you, that's painful too.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you never had that, you don't want that. Let me just tell you, because that's painful. I saw some spotting afterwards, and and then it was like the hysterectomy. Now, let me tell you what I think the view of like my doctors, my insurance, whatever, because I have Medi-Cal, right? Because I'm a business owner. So unless you pay for your insurance yourself, right, then you're not getting the fancy insurance. So I went the Medi-Cal route. I went with IEHP, right? And so even though they threw the words out there, hysterectomy, very early on, they didn't want to pay for it. And that's a procedure that I looked up, just so you know, that starts from $5,000 to $10,000, just by itself, okay? Just for a hysterectomy, yeah. $5,000 to $10,000, right? So they didn't want to pay for it. So then they take me through this whole process, right? But see, you had the fancy insurance.
I had the fancy insurance, but we had snafus there where they said, oh, we approved with this doctor. And
wow.
At the very end, they said he's not an approved doctor. So they tried to pull out of it. And then.
So you had your ups and downs too?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
see, I would always think, if I had the fancy insurance, I probably wouldn't be going through all this, right?
Well, afterwards, ultimately, I ended up going in for my 3-month checkup, and he opens up my file, like, this is, and he looked at it kind of quizzically, and then said, "Did we talk about your pathology?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "Well, you had cancer cells, but we removed it so you're cured."
Just like that.
Just like that. And I said, "Now wait a minute.
Wow.
We did a partial on me. I still have my cervix and my ovaries. What does that do for me?"
Have you tested the ovaries?
So he looked terrified when I asked that question, and he said, "We should probably get them out." But by that time, my insurance had said I couldn't use him. So then I had to find somebody else. And I'm not in the medical, I was not in the medical field. I went to several different doctors, the wrong oncologists, because there's all these little titles in front that we don't, we're not in the biz, right? So I didn't know. So it took me a long time. And women doctors, went into the one woman doctor, and her thing was, I said, I'm enjoying my sex life. I don't want to lose my sex life. What can you tell me about it? And her words looked me straight in the eye and said, "That's over."
Wow.
And I'm like, what? What?
And you're a woman, so I was thinking if I had more women doctors, they would be more understanding. So
this was a completely different thing, and I was floored.
And see, this is why we have to have these kind of discussions. This is exactly why.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking one thing, you might be thinking something else. Those of you in YouTube land out there might be thinking something else. So that's why we have to have these pressing discussions for real, because we really need to get on the same page and in the same mood, as it were.
I couldn't believe that was her big response. And so yeah, that absolutely And I didn't remain with her, and luckily our new weird insurance did allow for city court.
Okay.
And I tell you, when I got there, I cried a tear because they treated you
Bless
with
them.
respect. They took you serious. They already know your brain is going, so they're like, okay, you're gonna have to sit down, and you're gonna be called from that door. You don't need to worry about any of the other doors. You're gonna listen for the person calling your name from there. But there's just every part of it was
What's
about
different?
integrity, respect, kindness. And I literally was sitting there. You know, it's during COVID, so I couldn't have anybody with me. And I'm sitting in this chair, just like with one tear going down, like, someone's taking it serious. I felt like for the first time somebody was taking it serious. So I was grateful for that reprieve in the journey.
Wow. And that's the whole thing. When you feel like you're being seen and you're just not a number.
A number, yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to have this discussion with you, Inger, because you knew what I was going through, but I also knew what you were going through. And we both found out how much we mirrored each other.
Yes, and be able to ask, are you noticing this? Are you having this, or is it unique?
Yeah. That part. So I will give y'all a little idea as to what I was going through for the last 3.5, 4 years now. And am still going through, because even though you have situations like Inger mentioned with insurance, or your insurance doesn't cover a doctor maybe, right? You also have situations where doctors leave the practice. And I've had, what, 3 now? Three to leave the practice. So then you go back to the waysides, and those are the things that you have to deal with. So just to give you a little idea of what I was dealing with, okay? And I don't know if we touched on your period cycle. We did, right?
Yeah, I was saying that it went from normal to, then it was like only 8 days in a 6 month.
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah. Okay, my cycle was super duper heavy. I don't want to gross you guys out, right? But I do want to be real with you guys and let you know what was really taking place. On one particular occasion, I'm gonna use my daughter's words. She says, "Mom, our bathroom looks like a crime scene," and that's no lie. I was like a faucet as far as blood coming out of myself. And in a 30-day period, I was having a cycle for 18 days. And went to several specialists. I couldn't even tell you, like, I think we're probably at like 15, 20 now, because they couldn't understand why I was still having this kind of bleeding. Went severely anemic. I passed out on several occasions. Outside my home, inside my home, I mean, just passed out cold. Had to go to the doctor quite often in these last 3 to 4 years. I've gotten infusion shots, which I was allergic to. They tried to give me iron pills, at least 4 different tablets that I just started throwing up because I was having reactions to it. So they said they were going to give me diffusion because I need to get boosted up, right? So that was supposed to be an outpatient procedure one day. Had a whole situation with that, and had to end up being in the hospital for 2 days. When I tell you I had my points where I thought I was gonna pass out driving. You remember when I went to Vegas that time and I told you that I just made it home, and literally my kids had to get all my luggage out of the car. I couldn't even tell you when I came to. I want to say maybe 2 days later is when I came to. And so, can you imagine that? Like, just pass it out for 2 days on your bed. Like, just can't do anything. That was my life.
The fatigue thing is no joke.
It's no joke. My blood level is supposed to be at 13.4. Mine was mostly at a 6. They kept threatening to put me in and out of the hospital. right? So that's just to give you a little gist of why the insurance finally decided to do the hysterectomy. Because I was giving them so many other problems.
Yeah, okay.
It was like in and out of hospital, we gotta pay for that too, right? So specialist after specialist, this, right? So the anemia was one thing. I told you guys about the 18 days. We talked about the inside lining to test for cancer cells. I surprisingly, because I really thought I had cancer, to be honest with you. So surprisingly, they didn't find anything in that test. I thought I had a tumor. I thought it was all kind of things. And all the tests that they did with different specialists, I had none of it. So I literally cannot tell you why I was having this kind of belief.
Yeah.
To this day, can't tell you. All I know is now I have the hysterectomy, and now I have other issues. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and touch on that so you guys can know. Ingrid already knows. So now I have a prolapse situation, which I've had 2 doctors to say that it has to do with a woman given, childbirth, going through childbirth, that causes that. I've had 2 doctors to say that it has to do when a woman gets a hysterectomy, which I never had a doctor to tell me that your vagina falls or other stuff starts to happen having a hysterectomy. Did they tell you that?
They hadn't told me that, but I have been walking beside another woman that's had that, and that's been explained.
Okay.
So I kind of had an idea.
Okay.
But it's only because they were close family.
See? And this is why we have
Yeah.
discussion. Again, I'm going to keep going back to that because these are things that were never told to me, right? And so, all you women out there that maybe have not given birth yet, these are some of the things you have to deal with. Even you men that want your wives or your girlfriends to have kids, these are the type of things that you need to know that could happen years later down the line. It's not just giving birth. I've known of several people that I grew up with that went into labor, and they didn't make it through. That's something else. You could lose your girlfriend, you could lose your wife, So it's so many things. Having a kid is great, right? Both of us have done it, right? I have 2 daughters.
I have
2 daughters. See, we mirror each other everywhere. You guys just don't know. So, but the other flip side of it is you can have issues going down the line, right? And it could be something that is transmitted through a parent too, is what I heard, right? How true it is, I don't know, because like I said, I had 2 doctors say one thing, 2 doctors say another thing. So went to many specialists, said that, this is the other thing I wanted to tell you guys too, is that normally when you have like a bleeding issue, the doctors tend to put you on Provera, okay? I was put on Provera. They said you take it for a whole week, no more than 2 weeks, right? And it's supposed to cut out the bleeding. Okay, so I stopped that Friday. By that Sunday afternoon, I started my cycle all over again. It's like, and I was telling Ingrid today, that the doctor, when I called him Monday morning to let him know, like, look, it's going again. No, you're supposed to have stopped for 30 days. He didn't know that he didn't mute me. So he's talking literally to his secretary and is like, what is wrong with that one? Why is she bleeding?
That's what you want to hear.
Why is she bleeding like this? Like, I don't understand. Just tell her to take 3 pills 3 times a day. Well, that wasn't just it. For 6 months, I ended up taking 24 pills a day. Bleeding still didn't stop. And that's how we got into the fusion thing. Because then I was deathly anemic.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what can we do? So even though I had an allergic reaction to the fusion shot, that did raise my hemoglobin level to, 10? And that's when they said, let's do the surgery. And then it was like, we got to get this moving now.
Right.
Let's call the insurance now. Y'all on the same page with me. Right? But I think a lot of that was because they didn't want to pay for it too, just to be honest. So those are some things that you might have to deal with when you have IHPs, Medi-Cal, whatever. You will have to deal with that side of it too. If you can have two that you can put together, it's even more of a benefit, right? So those were some of the things. Also with the Provera, I told you guys about passing out, but I had dehydration, weakness. A lot of times they would have to, I would have to get on an IV when I go to the hospital because I was so dehydrated. With the hysterectomy, that was 4 to 6 weeks to recover is what they say. What happened in my case, and I'm gonna get back to you in just a moment, what happened in my case though is I kind of went back to work quickly. And Andrew was like, you're not listening to your body. I remember when you need to stop. But I went to work anyway. And I remember they said that I couldn't shower for a week, which was killing me. Unbearable pain with a hysterectomy. Did you feel like it was unbearable pain for you?
Mine was a little different because I had my brother with 68 surgery, so I was expecting something bigger than life.
Okay.
Because of everything I'd seen him go through.
Okay.
And so I was like,
Ooh, see that?
That dust devil back here.
I'm sorry, you guys, but it's like, what do you call it?
A
Like
dust
sandstorm?
devil. A dust
Devil,
devil.
that's what they call it. I was just checking that out. It goes all the way to the top, too.
so I was kind of surprised for me, like I had built it into something much bigger, so I was like, okay, I can deal with this. But that had to do with the structure of my family and the life we lived. But it was not pleasant. It was not pleasant.
And then that's where I'm gonna get to too with B, was the insurance came into play with that as well after the hysterectomy, because there's a shot, I can't remember what the name of the shot is, but I had to give it in my stomach. And they want you to give it, I believe it's 3 weeks, right? They gave me a week and a half of the shot, right? The insurance approved it, but they didn't approve the next week and a half. So then I'm not taking the shot, right, after the week and a half.
And this is the shot that helps prevent blood clots. Right?
That part.
Yeah.
So me not being able to get the shot put me back in the hospital because then I started hemorrhaging. I thought I was hemorrhaging because I was bleeding everywhere, right? And so when I got there, they said that it was a blood clot that had developed down there, let's say down there, and it burst. And so now that it burst, you're good. It's not going to go to your heart or anything, right? Cause some other problems. But now you got to be on bed rest for 2 weeks. So that was in addition to the 6 weeks we've already done, right? And so those are the things that a lot of people don't talk about that are happening behind the scenes. We just kind of deal with them, right? And move on, because what else are we going to do as mothers and wives or, you know, entrepreneurs, whatever? We just got to get past it, right? So that was my experience. You knew a little bit about my experience, right? Because we were talking about it. What did you feel when you saw what I was going through at that time?
Helpless, one, and just prayerfully, like, Lord, give her some answers, you know, get her with the right doctors to help her get through, because something's being missed.
Yeah.
Something's being missed.
That's what I felt. I felt like, Lord, did I do something? You know, because I talk to him often, and I'm like, I know you say that you won't put me under what I can't bear, right? So I said I must be a strong individual, but at the same time, it's just like nonstop doctor appointments, like nonstop. Like, you know what I do for a living. So those of you out in YouTube land that might not know, I'm a healthcare worker is what I do. I have my own business that I do, Thomas Benson Reynolds Healthcare Services. Give myself a plug. And so I've been doing this now, I want to say about 14 years total, right? And so in doing that, I'm always thinking about my health and getting back to my clients. And so this whole process, it was more focused on me, and I don't like things to be focused on me. And so it's just like, when am I going to get back to my life, right? Can't play tennis, can't get on this, can't do this, can't do bending.
But that's the other thing, is all the advice is quit doing all the stuff that helps you be healthy.
That part. That part. And then you already don't feel like a woman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
And
now,
feel like crud, and foggy brained, and
that part.
yeah.
So it's like, how do you get back to a sense of normalcy? And that's where I was having problems with, you know? And so that was one of the reasons that I wanted to see my therapist too, and make it a point to go see her once a week, because it was somebody to talk to. Not that I can't talk to you, right?
No,
But
it's a difference.
it's a difference, you know what I mean? Because psychologically you think you're tripping, right? Like all of this, like in a 4-year span to have went through all this. I could tell you again how many times I was in the hospital during this 4-year period. And a lot of people on the outside, they didn't know. A lot of people saw me going to work, a lot of people saw me going to this event and that event, and just keeping it all together, but they didn't know the backstory like you did. And so that was the thing that was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like you feel like you're being two different people, right? Instead of just being who you authentically want to be. And so I don't know if you felt that way too.
For me, I think because I had done the hormones and had been brought up to here, and then had the hysterectomy, and then had the full hysterectomy, I went from feeling good, having the memory back and all that, to I was tasked with having to make phone calls or whatever, and couldn't even figure out how to begin the process.
Wow.
I was so scrambled in just processes again. Remembering names, remembering what happened last week, what happened 10 minutes ago. I mean, I really, literally was like, am I going into Alzheimer's or something?
Do you think it was because of all of the appointments that you had? You know, because for me, I just wanted to forget the appointments. So I think subconsciously, I would forget certain things, like to set up this appointment, to go to this appointment or whatever, because I was just tired mentally of doing all of that. Like every time I'm off, I got an appointment, like clockwork.
For me, it was easier for me to try to concentrate, because it was through COVID. I was working with the agency, the domestic violence agency, and it was easier to focus there. But then I would realize it's 4 months later and I haven't done what I needed to do for my health. And then you sit there with the what if cancer is in there, you know, and I was still trying to figure out. So sporadically, it's like, okay, when you get a doctor appointment, it's usually 3 to 4 weeks before you can get in anyway, right? So I would finally get in. Exactly. So I would finally get in and think, okay, I'm on the path, and then I find out, oh, this guy isn't really on my insurance, or this one isn't the right oncologist and stuff. So I went, what was it? Almost 7 months before I got in to the right place.
Wow.
And that's long enough for something major to have happened. my pathology and all
Especially
the
with
pieces,
cancer.
yeah. But the pathology with all the rest of the parts that were taken out, I was cleared. But in the back of your mind, you're sitting there, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if. But it was easier to just concentrate, because we were having trouble getting supplies, we were having trouble, you know, getting the amount of food we needed to keep the shelter going and stuff, on top of, I got all this stuff going on, and the fatigue and the memory and memory issues.
Trying to be proactive.
Yeah. And so, mine was kind of different, you know, but it still was overwhelming.
Wow. You know, like, just talking about it right now, it's like bringing it all back. And still, because my situation is still going on. And so, like, I talked about the prolapse to you guys. I am definitely going to have surgery for that. It's just as far as when, and then it'll be at Loma Linda more than likely. And now it's about going to another specialist at Loma Linda and seeing when that's gonna happen. They already told me they're thinking anywhere from November to January for the surgery now, and we're in what, July? So it hasn't been enough time, because see, I had my hysterectomy in, was it 2019? 2019, I believe. No, 2020.
It was during that same time.
2020. And now we're in 23. And if we get to January, that's gonna be 2024. And so, if you just count that, you can see how long I've been dealing with this, but how long I've been, you know, even though I don't talk about it often, I've been in pain. And prior to, or I should say after me getting my hysterectomy, what I didn't tell you guys is that I also had a hernia repair to take the mesh out. So I had 2 surgical teams, my last surgery. And that's another thing that we need to talk about too, because when you go under anesthesia, I have a difficult time waking up. And so you have to have a team in place for that as well. And so my last surgery, it took 90 minutes for me to come to. And they had to put me on the breathing machine and all of those type of things, oxygen and whatnot. And then I have allergic reactions too, to a lot of different things. So it's a lot of different things, like we talked about it. You're allergic to, starts with a P.
Penicillin.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
And penicillin has saved my life many times. They give me that shot in my buttocks and I'm all good.
Okay.
I'm like, as much stuff as I'm allergic to, if I was allergic to that, I probably would have been dead by now.
Yeah.
It's crazy how God worked that out in my favor. But, so it's still going on for me, as far as, you know, getting the prolapse. They're talking about pulling everything up, suturing and whatnot, so that's gonna be a whole nother situation to have to deal with, but, I'm glad I'm here, you know what I mean? But I do believe that these are some things that both women and men need to talk about, because if you're in a relationship, I haven't been in a relationship for a while, but I'm just saying.
No, it's a journey for both of you.
Yeah.
It's a journey. I mean, you know, my husband and I have had to have real conversations, and what are we comfortable with, and how do we change things up to keep things going, and yeah, it's, I don't think they do enough anyway for preparing people for what the journey of just childbirth and all that too.
Yeah.
So it becomes normalized. It's all about, you know, for them.
And then if you think about it too, even with childbirth, They don't keep them in the hospital, but
I know, he's
like,
like,
what
thank
is
you.
it, like a day, two now?
Yeah.
Back in the day, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That did not happen.
Yeah.
I knew even when I had Kay, but it was some other underlying things, because my doctor never showed up to the hospital. That was number one, right? And we couldn't find any of the nurses because they were having a birthday party in the cafeteria area. And Kayla's head had already came out, right? And so they finally got them. So that was a whole nother situation.
Yeah.
But we ended up being in the hospital for 2 weeks because of that. Because they wanted to make sure feces wasn't inside me and all that other stuff, because she was already coming out. And that was labor for 24 hours, just so you guys know. 24 hours labor. And those are the things they don't talk about. And I did it, I didn't want anything given to me because I wanted to have her, come in the world with all her,
not affected by any of that. Yes, me too.
And so you deal with that pain. But here's the other thing. I was doing some research because I love to read. So I was reading up, and that's one of the things that could cause prolapse too. Because they say not getting the medication and then straining down, and also having more than one kid, that could create all that too. Putting the strain on the body and whatnot. Long labors is what they talked about in specific. And so I was like, wow, who knew that? I didn't hear that from anybody. Even though I didn't have her until I was like 20, I think it was 28 when I had Kay. So, it's those type of things that put strains on a woman's body. And it's not like we don't just sit there. We also work, we also cook, we also clean, and we have other things that we are trying to be movers and shakers with. We have relatives that rely on us, right? And so you had to be there for John. You have your mom, your dad's situation. We both, lost our dads. So we have that kind of understanding too, you know what I mean, of what it is to lose a parent. And so those are all the things that's on a woman's head that, kind of like they need to see into our eyes and our souls and what we're dealing with, because it's just not being on the surface. It's more than that. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay, let's move on.